So in this video, I wanted to briefly talk about how to identify a counterfeit Lamy All-Star, or more realistically, how to know that the Lamy All-Star you bought, hoping to be legitimate or assuming it was legitimate, is in fact a legitimate Lamy. This is one I recently purchased from Amazon. They had a really good deal running, so I picked it up, and I kind of wanted to run through what I would be looking for when purchasing a Lamy. The best thing to do, obviously, is to buy from an authorized dealer, but that may cost you upwards of $40 for an All-Star, whereas through a non-authorized dealer, you should be able to get a real one for considerably less. So this is the Lamy All-Star Bronze, and obviously the first thing you can do is make sure the color combination is the real deal. So in that case, you're looking for the bronze color on Lamy's website, matching with a chrome clip. As far as the boxing goes, this one came in this wide box. Sometimes the Lamy All-Stars and Safaris come in a square box like this. The box isn't a huge indicator of whether the pen's authenticity or not, but generally you should be looking for a Lamy branded. I mean, it'll always be a Lamy branded box with this paper like this, these vertical lines or horizontal lines running on it. But if it comes in a square box or a rectangular box, either is possible. It's good to look out for this right here. It says Gmund. That's the paper company Lamy uses to make their paper in Germany. Opening it up, there's not a lot to see inside the box. They used to always include instructions with the pens, but lately I haven't been getting instruction manuals with my Lamy, so I don't know if that's a good sign or not, but if you don't have instructions, I wouldn't freak out. Then you get the pen itself. The first thing you should be looking out for after that color combination we discussed before is this piece right here. This is a little divider that stops the fountain pen cartridge from being punctured en route to your home. This piece should have printing on the outside. It'll always have printing on the outside, and it'll say, something in German. It'll say remove in English, maybe something in French, and then it may or may not have printing on the inside. Some pens do, some pens don't. If it doesn't have printing on the inside, don't freak out. It could still be very much legitimate. Just it should have printing on the outside. Inside your pen, you want to look for a blue Lamy cartridge. This is a T10 cartridge. It'll say Lamy very, very subtly, and it's sort of stamped on there. It's not printed on. So you could probably just make it out where it says Lamy, if this will focus. And there you go. You could probably just make out Lamy right there. This is a blue T10 cartridge. The All-Star and the Safari, they do not come with converters. So if your pen comes with a converter, it's not a good sign. It should have a blue cartridge in it. Your pen will probably have some sort of label on it. I wouldn't read too much into the label. This thing could vary based on the reseller or where the pen was manufactured, like basically who's selling it. This one is a European model. It has the Swiss francs on there as well. This is not a really great indicator of the pen being authentic or not. Same with up here, it'll have a little cross mark. That means it's a fountain pen. Here it'll say Germany. Like, you want to see those things, but if you see a little bit of an imperfection or a scuff or something like that on there, it doesn't instantly mean it's a fake pen, but it should say Germany. There should be a cross mark here for the fountain pen. Well, not a cross mark, it should be a cross shape there. Next up, we're going to move over to the nib. This is a steel Lamy nib. The real nibs will say Lamy on it quite clearly. It'll have the size written above it. And those are the two biggest indicators just from a visual inspection of the nib. Flipping the nib over, looking at the feed, you'll want to see some sort of indication that this pen has been used before. A lot of people think of that indication as being, if it is a little bit of blue there, they think, oh, this pen must be fake. Lamy would never sell a blue pen, but that's the opposite is true. Lamy tests every one of the pens before it leaves the factory, and they always test with blue ink. So you want to see some indication that there's a little bit of bluing here and here. Right there, you can see it. It might be hard to make out the actual color, but if you look at your pen up closely, you should see some indication that the pen has been used and then cleaned. So right on the ends there's a little bit of discoloration. That's from the blue ink. If you go ahead and slide the nib off, it's better done with a piece of tape to pull it off, but we'll do it. See if we can get it off. It can be a little bit of a challenge. The nib is off, and you should see some indication of blue ink having been used on the nib. Here you can see the feed, even though it was cleaned, has a little bit of blue. No matter how hard you clean these things, or how well you clean these things, a little bit of color always stays on them. So you can see a little bit of blue. Maybe it's hard for you to pick up, but I could see it. There's definitely a little bit of blue left there, and it's easier to see on the inside of the nib. You can see at the top here and towards the bottom, a little bit of blue left. And you do want to see blue, not black, not purple, not green. It's always blue. So we get some blue on the feed and some blue on the nib. Slide this back into place. If you really want to test, you can get this nib and put it on a Lamy that you know to be authentic. That's always a good test. Another good indicator of a legit Lamy is you screw this down, and right here you see those little wings right there. When this pen is fully screwed in, you should not see those wings through that window. You can see right now the pen doesn't want to turn anymore. I look through the window, I do not see either wing. That's a really good and really important quality control point with Lamy. If your pen is fully tight and it looks like this, that's a bad sign. If it's like this, that's not a good sign either. It should be completely hidden like that. Again, none of these single signs, if they're a little bit off, that doesn't mean your pen is necessarily fake, but you basically want all these things to align, and then in combination, you know your pen has a really good chance of being legitimate. Next up, you want to look at the embossed logo right here. It should say Lamy, it should be uniform, it should be lined up. If this side looks skewed and this side's like one's higher, one's lower, or maybe if one side is more deeply embedded in the aluminum, like this side's more deeply embedded in this side, or if there's cracking around the edges of the letters, as if it was pressed in too hard, those are all really bad signs. This embossing is something Lamy does really well, and most of the counterfeit companies do really poorly, or at least relatively poorly. So it should say Lamy in a uniform and really nice fashion, and on an All-Star, it'll be just pushed into the aluminum. There won't be any color on it. It'll only be on one side of the pen. There's not a whole lot to see with the cap, but it's important to see how the cap interacts with the pen. When putting it on the pen, you'll get a click or like a pop-in action right here. But when posting it, it will post on smoothly. There'll be no click when posting. A click when posting is definitely a bad sign for having a legit pen. It'll go on smooth and it'll stay on firm with no rattle. Again, smooth and quiet, nice click. And that's definitely another indicator of proper quality control from Lamy's part. The company isn't always perfect. Some of the pens that release from the factory are not. They don't have the, stellar quality control. It's good, I would say, but not perfect. So some of these indications aren't going to be right 100% of the time, but again, we're looking at this in aggregate. Next up, this little window here. This should be pushed in with no cracking or anything like that around that window. This is one of the more subtler ones to identify, and it's hard to tell unless you have a legit pen handy, but you want to look for a uniform indentation here in that pill shape. Again, with no cracking around the outside and no visible wings through the window. I think I mentioned this already, but you want to see a blue Lamy T10 cartridge. The All-Star does not come with a converter. If your pen comes with a converter, that's not a great sign. And I think that is pretty much it from my standpoint. If these things line up for the most part, then you can be pretty sure that you do have a legit Lamy All-Star. If you have any questions or comments or I missed anything, please do let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching.